This is Love Never Fails with your host, Marilyn Redmond. Marilyn shares her experience, strength, and hope, and includes tools to help you find your inner strength for health, healing, and empowerment. So now, please welcome the host of Love Never Fails, Marilyn Redmond.
I'm your host, Marilyn Redmond. You're listening to Love Never Fails. This is the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And welcome this afternoon. I'm so glad everybody's here. And we've had a little challenge getting on the air, but we are here and we made it. And I'm so glad you're listening and you hung in there with me until the real time that we're actually getting to start today. So we want you to know this is a live TuneIn radio show. And if you would like to call in at 866-451-1451, we'd be glad to take your questions. So here's the number again in case you didn't get it, 866-451-1451. We cover a wide range of topics. Today's topic is going to be relationships, and our guest is Linda Schiller-Hanna, clairvoyant, psychic, medium, and Reiki master, and she'll be with us in a few minutes. So we have a relationship expert. I work in relationships too, and you're going to have good questions for us, I'm sure, today. So if you haven't had a chance to get that question answered, now's your chance. But first, I'd like to tell you about my big announcement. My book, Finding Reality Beyond Fear, is now really ready for you to enjoy. So you can join me on my spiritual journey from the depths of darkness into eternal light. And my guest today even has a testimonial on the back cover of the book and recommends it without hesitation. So I'm really thrilled today to have Linda on the air in a few minutes. My book, Love Never Fails, is a wonderful opportunity. My show, Love Never Fails, is a wonderful opportunity to get those answers you haven't asked in the past. And the book is on Amazon.com, Finding Reality Beyond Fear. I happen to have an author's page on Amazon.com. There happens to be another Marilyn Redmond author, so when you're on Amazon, look for Marilyn L. Redmond. She doesn't write spiritual books, and I do, so look for the ones that are spiritually oriented, and you'll have the right Marilyn L. Redmond on Amazon.com. I happen to have 10 books and ebooks up there, but the newest one, Finding Reality Beyond Fear, is really exciting as you can follow me through the different principles of spirituality leading into a life that you can't believe, which is beyond fear. So if you are getting those questions together for 866-451-1451, and we're going to have Linda come on in just a minute so that she can help us with her ideas on how you can get your relationships working for you too. And, we all have our difficulties, and I know most people, we can't seem to get along in life with all our relationships. There's always seems to be one glitch along the way. And everybody needs to know how to work those out in a way that's going to be productive for the other person and yourself. And so that it works out smoothly, comes into harmony. And Linda is the right person to do that. So I would like to introduce Linda today. As I mentioned, she's a clairvoyant, psychic, medium, and Reiki master, and she has a lot of credentials today to share with us so that we know we're talking to the real thing. Linda grew up in the Pacific Northwest and lived in 8 states in Mexico. She studied psychology at UC Berkeley, and she was a suicide prevention volunteer. She's also worked with unwed mothers, and she opened Angel Love Healing Center at the height of the AIDS crisis in Virginia Beach in the early 1990s. She's also hosted 2 of her own TV cable shows down in California. She has taught classes called Lightworker Intensive internationally in Germany, Canada, Mexico, and of course the United States, where she's graduated more than 1,000 students. I am pleased to say I am one of her students, and I have gone back for many of her classes. And she's also lectured with the Edgar Cayce Foundation, the ARE it's called, an Association for Research and Enlightenment. And she's gone through a lot of intensive, extensive therapy for her own challenging upbringing and has so many talents to share with us. And so, if we want to know one more thing about her, she believes trauma leads to a natural development of intuitive skills for survival. So, we're going to be talking about that and other relationship answers also. So, just know that we're here to help you today. And Linda, are you there?
I am here, and it's so wonderful to be with you, Marilyn. And I just am excited to help you launch your new show, which is going to meet so many people's needs. And just stay tuned, everyone, because Marilyn is a rare, enlightened soul. You're just not going to find someone like her on every street corner. So it's no accident you're here. It's no accident you're listening. You're part of our soul group, or you wouldn't be on the air with us right now. And we're very, very glad to be with you. And I'm very glad to be with you, Marilyn, today. So thank you.
Well, this is exciting. Well, I want to say thank you to you because of that testimonial on the back cover of the book. I just was really pleased with what you had to say, and thank you so much for that.
Well, I also posted one on Amazon because having just today, and so if you don't mind, it's a little bit long, but I would like to share what I just posted on the Amazon review place, if that's okay.
Oh, it's fun. Yes. Love to hear it.
Okay. All right. So it says, it's a customer review, destined to be a bestseller, life-changing if you're up for it. Best, tell it like it really is, answer to life. And I say, don't let the unassuming and gentle cover of this book lull you into thinking it doesn't pack a wallop. It does. Rarely does any human traverse an arc of growth as profound as this author in one short lifetime. Marilyn Redmond started life in a superficially perfect but secretly treacherous home. Brilliant and pretty and determined to be a perfect little girl with straight A's, musical mastery, poise and grace, she covered the scars for years. Unfortunately, looking good and trying hard did not protect her from the subtle and subconscious issues that challenging biochemical heredity, family dysfunction, and low self-esteem created. What is remarkable about this book is how calmly and matter-of-factly she describes her journey from finding reality beyond fear, which is the title. No barefoot runner from darkest Africa who wins an Olympics golden medal will have worked any harder than she has. Quietly, patiently, calmly, Redmond spells out golden nuggets of truth that seem simplistic on the surface. Yet putting them into practice and getting the community and our consciousness and will to work it into our life plans may be challenging. Are you up for a blueprint that shows the way and helping you avoid the multiple pitfalls that even the best guides, our doctors, schools, courts, systems, communities, charities generally offer? They don't always really work, but are how we've always done it. Besides, it keeps us in the power seat and rich, and you in the one-down position of struggle and pain. I'm not saying that's the only way it is, but there is a lot of that going on if we think about it. So anyway, it says, if you're really ready to break through from the trash that is normally fed to us when we are recovering from something, whether a dysfunctional childhood, addiction, or PTSD, this little book could be your most valuable and viable tool. It is nothing short of revolutionary. Ignore it at your peril. And for under $20, I think it's about $16. No, $10.97 is cheap. It's a buck twice the price.
Linda, we're going to have to take a break right now. I hate to cut you off, but can you hold that thought, and we'll be back in a minute. I am Marilyn Redmond. You're listening to Love Never Fails, and we are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I'm your host, Marilyn Redmond. You're listening to Love Never Fails. We are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Please call in at 866-451-1451 with your questions today. We have a real expert on relationships, and we're going to join Linda again. Sorry, Linda, we kind of got shortchanged on the last situation. Do you want to finish your comments while we have a chance right now?
Well, I've pretty much got it in, but I just want to say that the book is profound. You just put your heart and soul into it, and it's a huge summary of a long life of work on yourself, and nobody has done it better or more safely or comfortably communicated what's the real nitty-gritty, what really worked. And I know as we get deeper into the show, we'll be talking about some of the tools you and I have both discovered along our path in recovering from kind of what we might call bumpy early upbringing periods. So
very bumpy, and sometimes a few ruts. Right. Well, since we're talking about relationships today, I came across a cute little comment from a boy named Alan, age 10, and he was asked, how do you decide who to marry? And his answer was, you got to find somebody who likes the same stuff. Like if you like sports, she likes it too, that you like sports, and she should keep the chips and dip coming.
He's got it right.
I thought you'd laugh about that one, because exactly what happened to me in a relationship, I assumed all the things he liked, I just took over in my life and, so to speak, kept the chips and dip coming, and my whole life was very dependent on him. And to me, that was really a big part of my relationship problems. Do you have some special red flag or some warning that told you that something was not right?
Oh, boy. Well, after years of figuring this all out, my bottom line is I figured out I'm deeply codependent. And I remember going to high school in the 60s and hearing this song, once you found him, build your world around him. And if that isn't a classical codependent song, I don't know what is, because I took it so to heart. I'd seen my mother do it. I'd seen my grandmother do it. And it was a recipe for disaster. I had no clue as to how to build my life around me in those days, but that's changed.
Well, that's kind. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well,
I remember.
We got to get our act together here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead, Linda. Okay, when I was in Sunday school, way back in, again, the 50s, they said, God first, others second, self last. And that's a nice concept, but I really tried to live that, and I was clueless about God. I certainly figured out others should be important, and it didn't even occur to me that I had value. Now, many, many years later, I see that God is within, God is with all of us. And so, not to get too religious here, but I think that was kind of a wrong turn for me. I took it too literally and lost sight of myself.
Well, that's easy to...
Dangerous things, dangerous relationships as a result.
Well, that's what I found out, too. In my case, my mother was raised in the Depression, the Great Depression of the 20s and 30s in there. And she told me, you marry a man to take care of you. Well, she found my father, who had a job. He would take care of her financially. Of course, it was like oil in vinegar. It didn't match very well. So it was a bad situation. And so when I found what I thought was the right fellow, I just turned my life over to him and made him my God. He was going to take care of me. And I had no idea that you don't do that. and we have a lot of people out there that might not know the term codependency. How would you, when we're so dependent on another person, we lose our own identity. How would you define codependent?
Well, I think the more literal definition, and I'm not sure this is totally right, but something like if you're involved with a person who's primarily dependent on a drug or an alcohol or food or work as their addiction, and then you're dependent on those people who are dependent on that, you're a codependent. That's one way to do it. But I really think it's almost like the vision I get for myself is I have a little leash around my neck, like a dog, and I hand my leash to you and say, you figure it out. You leave me around. You determine my life. And what I've had to learn in healing my codependency was to take my leash back and determine my own life and say, maybe we can walk side by side, but I'm not just handing my power over to you, So that's kind of my simplistic idea about it.
Well, I think that's a really good way to look at it. In my case, I found out that you don't always have to have a relationship with somebody in an addiction. If there's somebody in the family, like they have diabetes, and the whole family gathers around them to keep them going and make them happy and make sure that their life's okay, you give up your life for them. And it doesn't even diabetes, but any illness, even with heart conditions or other diseases and ailments, if you're taking care of somebody else and you are giving up your own life, you're codependent on them. That's really called an enabler also.
Yeah, you're right. And it's a real fine line. And I think many of us who are honest struggle with wanting to be kind, wanting to follow the golden rule, wanting to be helpful to our loved ones. Charity begins at home. There's 1,000 ways that we are psychologically prepared to give up a lot, especially as women. Women tend to be the servant class in this world. And so it really is a fine line to be able to ask for our own needs, be able to say no. No is a big word for me, learning to say no.
Okay, well, we're going to take a little break here, Linda, and come back about some of the patterns and characteristics of people that are codependent. This is Marilyn Redmond. This is Love Never Fails, and we're coming from you from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I am Marilyn Redmond. This is Love Never Fails. We are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And I want you to remember that phone number, 866-451-1451. If your question isn't about relationships, that's okay today. We want to hear from you. So whatever the topic is, next week will be holistic health. Whatever questions you have, just feel free to give it a call and we'll answer the best we can. And but we're going to go back to relationships today with Linda Schiller-Hanna, who is our expert today, and you can reach her at the phone number of 330-725-0597 or her website, www.lightworker22.com. We'll give it to you at the end of the program, too, so you can also get her email if you're interested. So stay tuned. And Linda, we've been talking about relationships, and you've mentioned some of the patterns and characteristics that go on with this kind of relationship problems. How long did it keep you? Were you in denial before you came out of really recognizing that this wasn't the best relationship situation for you?
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked that.
Oh, no, I'm happy to answer. It just took me forever to break through. I had an abusive father who beat my mother, and so I grew up thinking that was kind of normal. I remember watching The Honeymooners where Jackie Gleason would put up his fist and say, "To the moon, Alice," and he would do that punching motion. And thank God that's not as common on TV anymore. But, I instead of calling it being brainwashed, I call it being brain dirted. I feel like I was brain dirted by that attitude in the early days. And I would say I was about in my 30s, I guess, before I began to recognize that the abusive guy I was with could actually literally kill me, and I had to get out of there. So it was slow coming in my life to wake up.
Well, if you want to hear the truth, you were faster than I was, because I was in my 40s before my husband tried to kill me. I was actually trying suicide to get out of the mess because I didn't know what was going on and I had no more answers. I thought I'd tried everything in the book. I read lots of books and trying to get answers in those days, and nothing was working. In fact, seems to be getting worse the more I tried to make it work. So, yeah, sometimes people take a long time to get their understanding of this is not the way things are supposed to go. Hopefully, people listening today, if they have relationship problems, if you're in a destructive relationship or you feel like you don't have a life of your own, if you don't feel like things are going so you can be a happy person and have that joy in your life we're all here to have, and have a pleasant life with harmony and balance, then you might want to look at your situation and say, well, maybe I need to say adios. In my case, I had divorce papers and restraining order papers ready in case I needed them. And that's a big joke. I probably needed them 20 years earlier. Because my denial was really slow changing into saying I got to get out of here. For me, it was a matter of live or die. And one of the reasons we don't get out very fast, Linda, is because we have such low self-esteem. And what was your self-esteem like?
Oh, it was bargain basement, bottom of the barrel. But I do remember a profound scientific project I want to mention that it was in the book Getting Free that I read by Ginny NiCarthy. I ended up in a women's abuse group that the police recommended, and it was life-changing. And you may have heard this story, I don't know if you have or not, but the deal goes is they put a bunch of dogs inside of a cage, and they hit them with cattle prods. And at first the dogs would pull back. Well, because cattle prods are like electric shock. But after a while, they kept doing it. They'd hit them with the prods, and the dogs wouldn't even move away. They just let it happen. So then they tried opening the cage door, and they hit the dogs with cattle prods, and the dogs didn't go out the door, even though they could escape. They said, well, how bad is it? They put a leash around the dog's neck, and they hit them with the cattle prods, and they tried to drag them out, and the dogs braced their feet and would not leave the cage. And that's how conditioned one can be to abuse, that you fight it even when you're being dragged out. So many people who've been in abusive dynamic homes or situations will go back again and again, and they say, well, why do they go back? Well, they're like that dog. They're conditioned to think that's all they deserve.
I can relate with that. I taught school for 30 years, and I'd go to school with a happy face, and I would just do my job all day long, got excellent reviews and evaluations, and then I'd go home to the problems, and why would I keep going home? And what I came to finally understand as I got into recovery is that in my case, I was a little 3-year-old emotionally that never grew up. So even though I had a job, even though I could go off and teach school all day and really have quite a nice time with the kids, I loved it. And especially the art and the writing and all those things. I had them write their own books. And so guess what? I'm an author today. But, I had a lot of fun teaching school. But I'd go home to the hell. And somebody would say, oh, how's it going on at your house? Oh, fine. Everything's just fine, And we'd show up at church. My parents taught me you sit in the pew and look good. And that was just a ritual to sit there. So everybody thought you were doing just fine. And it was what you didn't see was the problem inside. I was dying.
Yes. The good news is neither one of us died physically or spiritually. We both got blessed. We got help. We had interventions. We had people who helped us, and there's help out there for our listeners too. And I just recommend that any person in a challenging relationship, if you're scared, if they hit the animals, if they hit the kids, if they drive crazy when they're drugs, there's 1,000, if they spend all the money on the first day and you don't know how you're going to feed the kids by the end of the week, there's 1,000 ways you can get financial abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, spiritual abuse. The guy that was so dangerous for me, I had a picture of Jesus on top of my water heater because he wouldn't let it in the living room, and he just threw it on the floor. To me, that was a spiritual abuse because he was so disrespectful for my values. So there's 1,000 ways you can be hurt. And if we're pinging anything for you, we encourage you, whether to call us or call your police or call your domestic violence place. Even if you have kids. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we're going to take a break here. Hold that thought, and we'll give some people more advice when we come back about how to leave your domestic violence or abusive situation or relationship. Stay tuned. I am Marilyn Redmond. You are listening to Love Never Fails. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I am your host, Marilyn Redmond. You are listening to Love Never Fails. We are coming to you live on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And Linda, you were really giving us some marvelous information about people where they can get help and who to call and how to leave. And the first time I left with this problem was to a battered women's shelter. And they gave me the book you mentioned, Getting Free. And I read that on the plane, although my husband abandoned me out of state on the Oregon coast. And I had a book to read on the airplane going home, which was Getting Free. And that was the first time I saw answers of how to actually get free. And your information is so helpful to those listening today. So do you want to repeat some of those things you suggested for getting help?
Yes, in fact, I will personally send a used copy to Getting Free to anyone who emails me and just gives me a safe address to send it to. Just send it to linda@lightworker22.com and just say I want that book, and give me an address maybe to your girlfriend's house or something so he doesn't see it, and I'll shoot you out a used copy. You guys might also want to get a copy of Marilyn's book, Finding Reality Beyond Fear, because it's kind of a roadmap to the whole big thing. But the police, I called the police. My boyfriend was taking my head, and he was going to put it right through a plate glass window. And I grabbed my purse and ran out the door. I got away from him, and I called the police, and I said, "Is it against the law for your boyfriend to hit you?" And they said, "Yes." And they said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." I was shaking. And they said, "There's a women's abuse group, and it meets at this location, and here's the number." And I called, and I went into that meeting, I think within 24 hours. I had a girlfriend I could go stay with, so I didn't have to go to the shelter that first time. But I went to those meetings, and they were life-changing. And each woman would go around the room and say, "I did this and this and this and this, and he hit me." And then I'd think, "She didn't deserve it." And then next would say, "And I did this and this and this one, and he'd try to run me over." And I'd think, "She didn't deserve it." And they went around the room, and I thought, well, maybe I didn't deserve it. I mean, I really believed I deserved the crap I was getting. But by seeing the other women, I began to bond with the truth that nobody deserves that crap. And then, excuse my language, but it was really not okay. And it was the beginning of the transformation. And I got away and stayed away. And
well, good. I'm glad you did, because you were here today for us.
Yeah, and I've been 22 years happily married with a good man who's never once thrown anything at me harder than a soft pillow in a joke.
Oh, that's marvelous. Well, I was afraid to bring up any comments at all. I avoided all conflict and confrontation because one night when we were first married, I was really, really tired. I had a baby child at that time. I just had given birth. She was only like 5 weeks old. And I was really tired, and when it came time for nighttime, and he was interested in being romantic, and I said no, and he strangled and raped me, of course, and I never said no again until the night of our bottom when he tried to kill me, and that time I knew I probably wouldn't get home alive. So you've got to leave the situation. You never know what's going to tick them off. And in this case, it was something really simple that caused me to leave for good. And it was, my ex-husband was an alcoholic, psychopath, sex addict, rageaholic, and I was pinning up my dress so it wasn't so low down on my chest. It wasn't so revealing. And that really ticked him off. And the rest of the time, he was just holy terror. And we were in Canada. He wouldn't let me out of the car till when we got to the border, which is what I was hoping to do. And I did finally was able to contact the police from a restaurant, and they took me to their police station, and he went home alone, and that was basically the end of our marriage. We did kind of get back together several times because we went to 12-step groups thinking we could work it out. People, don't believe what they tell you, because every time they tell you is just to get you back into their grip again. And so we went back together several times, but it really wasn't any better, even though his words were wonderful, that he was going for therapy and he was doing this and that. It really wasn't any better. It was just lip service. And I bought into it at first and kept going back thinking, oh, he's improving, he's doing better. But the bottom line was there really was no change. And it just finally, I had to get a divorce to get out. It was the only way I could survive.
Absolutely. The Getting Free book explains that even a man who wants to change from being dangerously abusive, they said it's easier to recover from leprosy than to recover from being a violent partner or a violent father. So they are really messed up people. God bless them. It isn't that we hate them, but it's not safe to be with them. I think of it as inviting a cobra into your house and living every day with a snake running around that could bite you at any minute. We would not live with a cobra. We wouldn't live with a wild tiger. And living with a domestic abuser is like living with that, and it's not good for you. You're constantly on edge. And I know there's somebody hearing this because my inner voice is saying, press this point. Somebody is out there shaking, saying, oh, my God, that's what I'm doing. I've got a cobra in the house. If you've got a cobra in the house, you get out. You're probably going to have to leave them. You know, the courts can work out who gets the house, how much alimony you get or whatever. But for the short run, get yourself out and get yourself safe. I just feel like I have to passionately say that. I didn't expect us to go really in this direction, but it seems like that's where we're headed. So Spirit must be wanting us to share this with someone listening today.
Well, I didn't expect it to go in this direction either. And if you have a problem you're concerned about, call us at 866-451-1451. And when you talked about the snake and the cobra, there was I had a psychiatrist that was helping me in recovery. And he said, if the snake offends thee, why pick thee up?
Very good.
So I quit picking up the snake. You know, there is a way to gain self-esteem and to gain healthy tools. And when we come back this next time, we're going to talk about solutions that will help you move out of this state into a better state of happiness and enrich your life and give you empowerment. I am your host, Marilyn Redmond. You are listening to Love Never Fails. We are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I'm your host, Marilyn Redmond. You are listening to Love Never Fails, and we are on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, Linda, we have talked about how disastrous this situation can be, and I thought we might take a look at some of the answers where people can go to get the kind of help to build your self-esteem, enrich your life, and move out of this. For me, I had to start growing up. I was that 3-year-old that never grew up from watching my dad beat up my mom, just like you mentioned earlier in the program. I emotionally was stunted. And I discovered that my husband was also emotionally probably 3, 4, or 5 years old in there because of the abuse he witnessed in his childhood. And neither one of us had grown up. So the only way to get out of there was to grow up and take responsibility for myself. I've heard that you've been going to CODA.
Yeah, CODA is Codependents Anonymous. It's there's AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, and there's Codependents Anonymous. It's not the oldest program, but it's certainly a good one. And if you can't find it in your community, you can always find it online. So it's available. If you can hear our voice, you can find a CODA meeting. I go every week, and it's absolutely an incredible tool for giving me a place to dump my pain and learn new skills and learn to surrender control. Most of us who grew up in dysfunctional families try to be control queens and You can ask my husband now. I'm still a control queen. It's not an easy thing to let go of, but at least I know I'm trying. And you can't have the floor back, Marilyn, because I'm going to keep talking. Ha, ha, ha. No, go back. I'm going to give it back to you because you've done a lot of 12-step work yourself, I know.
Yeah, I also went to adult children of alcoholics for several years. And that's when I really discovered what childish problems had happened in my life and led me into this. My parents modeled what they had. They couldn't give me the love and nurturing and stability that they didn't have. They didn't know how because it had never been in their life. So they couldn't model a mature adult approach to life. So there's Al-anon also has a marvelous book. We've mentioned a few books on here. The Dilemma of the Alcoholic Marriage. If you're in an alcoholic marriage, that book offers a lot of answers for how to communicate in a way that will bring you better results. It's a marvelous little book. It's not very big, but you do have to go to an Al-anon meeting to get the book, or you could get it used, I'm sure, on Amazon. They have everything. But Al-anon is a program for codependent people that are involved with people that are drinking primarily, and it has the same opportunities, and it's probably a little longer organization than CODA, but it does the same thing. It offers you a chance to share your feelings, which you didn't have. It's a disease of no talk, no trust, and no feelings. And when I learned to go through the steps of the program, I came to the 11th step, which said prayer and meditation. And through that, I learned how to forgive my husband. I realized he was an abused little child who never grew up himself, and his pain, he was acting out his pain on me. And I'm the little abused little girl trying to defend myself. So that was a painful thing for him. It's like attacking another person when you're defending yourself. It sounds strange, but if you aren't sending love, you're attacking someone. So when I sent love and forgiveness to him, I literally had God stop time and told me to pray for him. God forgive him, for he knows not what he does. God bless him. I said it twice. He left the room very mystified. I wished I'd had a camera, because his face was really a look I would like to have kept just to remember it. And he never touched me again. So people, remember, if you pray for that person, they're hurt, they're abused, they're in pain. You don't have to send the pain back to them and get it again. Send love to them. Forgive them. They are acting out their pain, and it really is nothing about you. You can grow up and grow out of it. You can become a mature person. And I'm in a relationship today that'll be 17 years in April. Unconditional love. I'm treated like a queen today. I have my own thinking, my own feelings, and my own identity, and I very, very much enriched in my life, supported in anything I want to do. So, we don't have to stay in this kind of environment. We don't have to stay and be hurt, as Linda was talking about. Take that opportunity to find a 12-step group, CODA, Al-anon, whichever, adult children of alcoholics, go to the battered women's shelters and get the classes that'll help you find better ways to handle your life. All my writing is about tools to help you improve your life in these situations. So it's possible to move out of this and grow up, take responsibility for your life, get yourself a job so you can have your money to be who you are and what you want to do with your life. You don't have to be glued to them like a barnacle.
Right. And I totally agree with every word you said, but I'm going to split hairs here. I totally agree that you need to forgive and unconditionally love the person that's abused you, but that does not mean you have to stay with them. Even when you forgive them, you still need to move on because they're not healed enough to be safe around you. The dynamics between the two of you are so toxic. You can pull in healthy love from someone else. They can get they say you actually help your abuser by leaving because you are their drug of choice. And so it's like you're their alcohol if they're an alcoholic. If you move yourself away, they've got to go find somebody else to hit. And maybe in the meantime, they'll think maybe hitting isn't a good idea. So I'm not saying don't forgive them. I've forgiven my abusers too. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stay with them when they're still wounded and sick and acting out.
Linda, I'm so glad it's not splitting hairs. That is excellent advice. You do not stay with somebody hurting you. That just doesn't make sense. When I went to see we were separated. I went to see my husband on business. We had a business, and I had to check out some information. And he had the next woman all lined up and waiting for him. And she was in the office when I went to talk with him. And I left the office, and I started driving home after the conversation, and I started laughing. And I thought, well, Marilyn, what are you laughing about? And I said, I'm off the hook. She's the one that's going to get the abuse now, and I'm free of it. And so when they go find another woman, don't cry for them. Don't say, I miss them and I have to go back and make them happy. Make yourself happy. Go find a way to make yourself enjoy your life and find the activities that work for you and people that support and love you, and know that you are meant to be loved and not hurt. And we're going to stop for a short break, Linda, and we'll be back in a minute. I am Marilyn Redmond. You're listening to Love Never Fails. We are on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I am Marilyn Redmond. This is Love Never Fails. We're here on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And remember, our phone number is 866-451-1451. And Linda, we've had a pretty interesting conversation today. I'm so glad you joined me. What would you like your listeners to know about you that maybe we haven't had a chance to talk about?
I make my living as a professional psychic counselor, intuitive reader, talk to the dead people, all that. But one of my favorite things to do is to work with people who are working through abuse issues, inner child, and I work on a sliding scale on that. And so if they check my website, Lightworker22, and say $3 a minute, I can't afford that, just let me know and we'll work out something, because I work with a lot of, particularly women over time, like maybe once a week or twice a month on a sliding scale. And we do the intuition, we do counseling, it's by phone or Skype, and help people get back on their feet and get empowered. It's many other issues too, not just this, but I'm available. I live on Eastern Time, 330-725-0597. Or if you want that book, Getting Free, you can email me, linda@lightworker22.com, sending you an address, and I'll send you a used copy right away. So that's basically it, but I just want to thank you, Marilyn, for this chance. It's really been a blast.
Well, you have such wisdom from having come through all of this. Would you like to share some wisdom that you've found to be real helpful for you?
Yeah, one of my girlfriends gave me this affirmation, and it has been life-changing. It's very simple, and maybe you can jot it down. I am an angel. I am a smart angel, and I have sense enough to fly away from those who don't know how to treat angels. I'm an angel. I'm a smart angel, and I have sense enough to fly away from those who don't know how to treat angels. I think it's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, Linda, that is so marvelous, because, we need the self-esteem to do it and to have the courage to do it. You've covered all the bases in that. It's beautiful. I hope our listeners could write that down and keep that on their walls. We're going to do affirmations in a couple weeks here when we're talking about holistic health. And that affirmation would be absolutely wonderful to use throughout the day to remind yourself that you can move into a better place. You deserve it. All right. Well, we have had a wonderful talk with you, Linda. We want to thank you for being here today. What a marvelous piece of information you've given us, and help and answers, and your story is amazing. And we're so thrilled that you have come through and learned so many wonderful things and helping so many people. I do the same kind of counseling that Linda does, a lot of help for your inner child. Your little girl needs that love and support that Linda in her counseling, or I can help you with my counseling, give you that love and support and change that little girl so she can grow up and be that angel. Oh, how marvelous. And Linda, thank you for being on the show today. I want the people to know that I have a website at angelicasgifts.com. My books, again, are on Amazon.com. My blog is MarilynRedmondBooks.blogspot.com. And I have 133 YouTubes. I do channeling from the other side, talk to those that have passed over like Linda does. We do a lot of the same kind of things. Guess what? She was my teacher, and she's a good teacher. So you can connect with her or you can connect with me. Next week, we're going to talk about holistic health. So many people are turning to natural ways and wanting to understand more about what is holistic health instead of going to the regular protocol that's been put in ourselves, not necessarily doing the job we want, and gets pretty expensive. So tune in next week to hear more about holistic health, and that you too can have a better life. You can enrich your life, and stay tuned every Tuesday afternoon for Love Never Fails with our wide range of topics. And we want to thank everybody joining us today, that you were there for us. You're going to be there next Tuesday and hear more about holistic health. And we're glad that everything is coming together. This is a beautiful day here where I am. Enjoy the sunshine, go out and have a good life and have a good time. You deserve it. You were meant to have joy on this planet. And just know that every Tuesday we're here for you at 866-451-1451. And don't forget to call in with those questions next week.
You've been listening to Love Never Fails with your host, Marilyn Redmond. Go beyond old ideas and understandings and hear Marilyn's solutions to healing and a higher consciousness. Each week, here on Marilyn Redmond's Love Never Fails.